to identify themselves. Put on a uniform. Put on the white hats like the Ku Klux Klans did in Cape Town to identify themselves so we know who they are. If not, it's going to be a lot of innocent people out here getting hurt. Because the way it is now, brothers saying to me, Jeff, these people talking about they're going to kill us. Well, what we going to do? We ain't going to stand back and watch let these old people kill us. There ain't going to be no.
So far on Occult Black History, we have talked about the influence of Masonic signs and symbols on cultural spaces such as the Black American Church, as well as the Masonic influence on Black American Greek society, and even the hidden hand of Freemasonry in the world of hip-hop. So for this dive into the historical archives, we will focus on the relationship that sect claiming and gang banging also has to the Masonic world of signs and symbols. Now for this first chapter, we will focus on which ways the first Moors in America had ties to the criminal underworld, and especially trades and crafts such as gambling and racketeering. In 1923, a story coming out of New Jersey was picked up by a well-known national literary magazine, The Smart Set. A man claiming to have religious authority derived from his connections to Arabia had begun a movement of spreading Islam among the Negroes of the United States. Muslim groups have been started in New Jersey, one of them in Newark, where a mosque has been established. From there, Islamic missionaries will move upon the South. The figure leading this movement had 7 months earlier made headlines in various U.S. newspapers. In one front-page article, this man of African descent was depicted wearing a fez, and it was reported he had been proclaiming his movement to be both Islamic and Masonic. One of Mohammedan Masonry and spoke of his mystical and Egyptian connections. It was later relayed that he had been a leading number of New York Muslims in attempting to win Negroes to the Islamic faith by stressing the fact of absolute equality among the races and genuine Islamic brotherhood, as opposed to the racist views from white Christians. Those familiar with the histories of either Islam in the U.S. or African American religions might assume that the man leading this movement was none other than Noble Drew Ali, the Fez-wearing figure widely recognized for being one of the main early popularizers of Islam. The Fez-wearing figure widely recognized for being one of the main popularizers of Islam for African Americans, who is claimed to have started this movement, which was infused with Masonic, esoteric, and mystical symbols and doctrines, as well as references to Egyptian and Mecca and Newark, only becoming widely recognized in the second half of the 1920s while in Chicago. This assumption, however, would be wrong. The man who was leading this movement went by the name of Hamid Suleiman and was definitely not the same person as Noble Drew Ali. Still, the numerous similarities between these two men, between the dates, locations, the names of their movements, between their messengers and symbols used, in addition to very curious rumors about the origins of Drew Ali's group, suggests that these have connections was due to more than mere coincidence. This essay brings to light a figure known as Suleiman and examines the possibility that he was an important influence for Drew Ali and his Moorish Science Temple. The findings presented here will show that it is highly probable that Sufi Hamid Suleiman and his movement influenced Drew Ali. Furthermore, it raises the question of whether Drew Ali had in fact been a member of Hamid's Moorish Science Temple as opposed to the leader of the movement connected to Suleiman. The violent struggle against Dutch Schultz gradually edged Stephanie St. Clair out of the numbers racket. She begun taking out newspaper ads as a sort of insurance policy against the police and Dutch Schultz, publicly stating where she was and what she is doing, so everyone had a record of it. In so doing, she had to keep her nose clean, ended up handing the reins to her protege, the young and violent Bumpy Johnson, who ran things for many years thereafter. With Bumpy Johnson protecting her, Dutch Schultz dead, and a desire to keep her life on a straight and narrow, St. Clair transitioned into using her new public persona to advocate for political reform. It was in this capacity that she met her future husband, the Sufi Hamid Suleiman, known in the press as Black Hitler. Sufi Hamid was, as one could expect, an eccentric figure. A cape and turban-toting militant activist, he organized a campaign to boycott businesses that didn't employ blacks. He ran a mosque and claimed to have been born in Egypt. For these reasons and many others, not the least of which were his rabid anti-Semitism and Nazi-style fashion and dress, the press took a dim view on him and dubbed him a Black Hitler. But unfortunately, their marriage did not last long and ultimately ended when she shot him, or rather she shot at him. The many details of their marriage are too complex to explore in depth, but it's enough to say that Sufi Hamid was cheating on her with a big butt fortune teller who went by the name of Dorothy Matthews. Sufi Hamid and Dorothy attempted to start a number of businesses using Stephanie St. Clair's money, including, fittingly enough, the sales of manure. When St. Clair had had enough and found out about the rumors, she had shot at Sufi Hamid at least 3 times, although the closest she came to actually hitting him was grazing his face. Shortly after, Stephanie St. Clair was sent to jail for 3 years. Her story gets a bit hazy. Harlem began a slow decline as outside forces began squabbling over it, with their efforts sapping the community of resources instead of reinvesting in it as Stephanie St. Clair had done. Sufi Amin had died in a plane crash months after her arrest, and the mosque he had been running was turned into a dance hall that featured a one-leg dancer. St. Clair herself lived a fairly quiet life, and she died in the year 1969. Years later, when interviewed about Stephanie St. Clair, the widow of Bumpy Johnson summed her up as a woman not afraid of anyone, wasn't afraid to kick off her expensive high heels and go toe-to-toe with any man or woman who was brave enough to insult her character. Was arrested by Detroit police in 1932 after a member of his organization was implicated in a human sacrifice murder. He was briefly jailed and subjected to psychiatric evaluations before being released. The incident, which occurred in 1932, was a mentally ill follower named Robert Harris committed a ritual murder which was sensationalized by local newspapers as Detroit's voodoo cult. Following the murder, authorities launched a manhunt and arrested Ford along with another leader, Ugan Ali. They were both evaluated by psychiatrists and confined to padded cells. Under intense pressure from law enforcement and the media, Ford immediately turned the leadership of his organization over to Elijah Muhammad. The group, originally called the Allah Temple of Islam, was renamed to the Nation of Islam and moved the headquarters to Chicago to distance itself from the scandal and arrest. And afterwards, Ford mysteriously disappeared in 1934. Historical accounts link Ford's early origins to the Moorish Science Temple of America, a movement that was founded by the Sufi Ahmed Suleiman in Newark, New Jersey, long before Ford formed his own Temple of Islam in the city of Detroit.
Came out in 1976 wearing different clothes. He had converted to Islam in prison and given himself a new name, Chief Prince Malik. He didn't go back to Chicago right away. He went to Milwaukee first, joined the Moorish Science Temple, and spent 2 years building the theological framework he would use to rebuild his organization. Then, in 1978, he returned to Chicago executed a coup inside his own organization. He replaced the main 21 generals with 5 loyalists, renamed the Stones the El Rukns, and turned a former movie theater on South Drexel into a fortress headquarters he called, without irony, the fort. A religious organization was harder to surveil than a street gang. Fort had calculated that precisely. But here is what the surveillance argument misses about Jeff Fort. He didn't just rename the gang, he rewrote its cosmology. New name, new scripture, new symbols drawn from Arabic and Islamic tradition, a mosque as headquarters, a title, Chief Prince Malik, that carried the weight of prophecy, not just rank. And most gang leaders want to be feared. Fort wanted to be inevitable. By the time he walked back into Chicago in 1978, he didn't return to lead the Stones. He returned to found something. The difference matters because founders don't answer to the people who came before them. It started, of all things, with food. In April 1978, inmates at Stateville were being served rotten food. Hoover organized a work stoppage. Most inmates joined, including rivals. Enemies stood together over bad meat in an Illinois prison, and something unexpected happened. They kept standing together. The alliances that formed in the aftermath hardened slowly over the following months. And on November 11, 1978, they became official. They gave it a name, Folk Nation, the six-pointed star, the number 6. The brotherhood signed into existence inside the same walls that were supposed to contain it. Fort heard about it. Of course he did. He built the opposite. People Nation, the 5-pointed star, the number 5. Every organization outside Hoover's orbit unified against it. One city, 2 nations. Every block, every corner, every housing project forced to choose a side. The symbols went onto walls, into tattoos, into hand signs that teenagers in cities neither man had ever visited would still be throwing decades later. The government had paid nearly $1 million in 1967, hoping to redirect 2 extraordinary minds towards something manageable. What it got was a parallel government with its own laws, its own territory, its own economy, and its own flag. 2 flags, actually, and a war between them that the original check never budgeted for. When the rent stopped. By the early 1980s, the federal money was long gone. The job training program had been shut down, investigated, and quietly buried in a Senate subcommittee report that nobody read. The legitimacy window had closed. What replaced it was crack cocaine. Crack arrived in Chicago the way it arrived everywhere, fast, cheap, and extraordinarily profitable for anyone already positioned to move product at scale. Both organizations were. The Gangster Disciples had the South Side infrastructure. The People Nation had the distribution networks and the same hierarchical structures that the federal government had once found so impressive. The ranking systems, the territorial discipline, and the chain of command turned out to be equally effective for running a narcotics enterprise worth hundreds of millions of dollars a year. This is the part of the story where I think we have to be honest about something uncomfortable. The same organizational genius that made Fort and Hoover remarkable, the thing that made the government want to hire them in the first place, was completely content neutral. It didn't care whether it was being applied to job training or drug distribution. Structure is structure. Leadership is leadership. You point it at whatever the environment makes most profitable, and it performs. And in 1980s, Chicago crack was the most profitable thing going. The machine they had built did not have a conscience, it had a structure, while the nobody in Washington ever connected that structure to the check they had signed in 1967. Fort by this point was back in prison, convicted in 1983 on drug trafficking charges, sentenced to 13 years, sent to a federal facility in Bastrop, Texas. From there, he did what Hoover had been doing from Stateville for a decade. He ran everything by phone. Daily calls to El Rucan headquarters at the fort on South Drexel. Coded conversations. Layered instructions passed through lieutenants. FBI agents had tapped the phones looking for drug evidence. What they found instead, in March of 1986, was something that genuinely stopped them cold. Fort was negotiating with Libya. Muammar Gaddafi's government had recently given Louis Farrakhan's Nation of Islam a $5 million loan. Fort, by multiple accounts, was envious. He sent representatives to meet with Libyan officials in Tripoli and at a Libyan embassy in Panama. The deal on the table, $2.5 million in exchange for acts of domestic terrorism, attacks on American soil targeting government infrastructure. In El Rukan code, $2.5 million was 2 dinners and half a lunch. In March 1986, Gaddafi called the fort directly. An El Rukan general rigged a 3-way connection so Fort could speak to the Libyan leader from his prison cell in Texas. Fort greeted him in Arabic, Salami alaikum, peace be with you. A Chicago street gang leader, a Libyan dictator, a 3-way call routed through a federal prison in Texas. I have read the court transcripts for this section 3 times. Each time I get to the part about the phone call, I stop and just sit there for a second. I don't know what else to do.
U.S. Attorney Anton Valukas would only give sketchy details about the arrest and the rocket at an afternoon news conference.
Knox was arrested in connection with his attempt to receive an interstate shipment, an M72 light anti-tank weapon for purposes of destroying a building.
In addition to weapons, which appear to be the main priority today, drug paraphernalia, scales, and records of alleged transactions all were part of the search of El Rukan property. 1976, when Jeff Fort left prison and declared a new religion.
The activity to see them from below.
In the next 9 years, the El Rukans would set up a fortress-like headquarters on Chicago's south side with reinforced steel doors and windows. It was called the Fort.
Remember that Jeff Fort was a serious political force while still in his teens in the late 60s, and that not only did he appear in front of Congress, he was invited to Richard Nixon's
Henry Cogwell Jr. was born July 27, 1945 in Chicago, Illinois, to Henry Cogwell Sr., and the only name I could find for his mother is Lady Peastone. He grew up in the Fuller Park section of Chicago and was given the nickname Mickey as a kid. The gang that would be known as Mickey's Cobras started as the Egyptian Cobras. Like many other Chicago gangs, they started as a social club. Their original symbol was a pyramid with a snake wrapped around it. The Egyptian Cobras were not associated with the Cobra gang in Lawndale. They were a separate thing. Mickey founded the Egyptian Cobras in Fuller Park in 1960. Also in 1960, Charles Atkins, an original member of the Devil's Disciples in Inglewood, left the Disciples and created his own gang called the Double Six King Cobras. It wasn't too long after that the two Cobra gangs joined forces and became the Egyptian King Cobras. By 1962, Mickey was the leader of all 7 gangs or tribes that made up the Egyptian King Cobras. Also in that year, Mickey Cogwell arranged a merger with Bull Harrison and Jeff Fort of the Blackstone Rangers. The Egyptian Cobras were a bigger gang than the Rangers, but the Rangers were more organized. By then, Mickey was already working with older numbers men in the neighborhood, and he was involved in the policy racket even though he was only 17. Mickey Cogwell was smart and had a lot of charisma, and he would become a key addition to the Blackstone Rangers. Mickey's contribution to the stone symbolism was the pyramid. Mickey gave up his position as the leader of his own gang and became one of the main 21, the ruling council of the Blackstone Rangers, and he was the 3rd highest ranking member in the gang behind Bull Harrison and Jeff Fort. The Egyptian Cobras would change their name to the Cobra Stones, and the former King Cobras in Inglewood would change their name to the King Cobra Stones or the Egyptian Cobra Stones. On June 29, 1963, Chicago Police Patrolman John Callahan was driving west on 79th Street. He was about to turn on Woodlawn Avenue when he saw a pair of young men knock down and take the purse of 52-year-old Henrietta Lake and run off to a car parked at 79th and Greenwood. Officer Callahan got out of his patrol car and gave chase. He caught 17-year-old Mickey and took him to the station. Mrs. Lake was taken to Park Hospital and treated for bruises on her back and ankle. At the station, Mickey gave the names of the two other young men, Luke McDaniel, 17, and another unidentified 16-year-old. This was the first time the name Henry Cogwell would appear in the newspapers, but it wouldn't be the last. In 1962, the Robert Taylor homes were opened, and Mickey and his family moved in, and he brought the Cobra Stones with him. They converted a lot of young men to the Cobra Stones and controlled a large portion of the projects. So did their rivals, the Devil's Disciples. On September 9, 1968, Jerome Pony Soldier Cogwell, the 19-year-old brother of Mickey, was shot and killed by a disciple in front of the Robert Taylor homes. Jeff Fort organized a supposedly peaceful rally to get State Street between 53rd and 56th renamed after Pony Soldier. On November 30th, the peaceful march became unruly, and the gang members began to smash storefronts and harass people until the police were called. When the police arrived, the situation got worse. The gang argued with the police, and 25 were arrested, including Mickey and Jeff. They were taken to the station and charged with mob action. The charges would eventually be dropped for Mickey. Throughout the election season of 1968, Mickey led a campaign to stop people from voting. The newspaper suggested he was paid by politicians, but Mickey denied the accusation. He claimed that this was the Stones' way of protesting the system by not taking part in it. The Stones by now had become more politically aware, and they were beginning to be noticed by the politicians. In January of 1969, Jeff Fort was invited by President-elect Richard Nixon to attend his inaugural ball. Jeff declined the offer, but he sent Mickey and Bobby Jennings to represent the Stones. Mickey rented a tuxedo, and he, Jennings, and Peter Stoddard, a social worker with the Stones, took a flight to D.C. on their own dime. This was 2 days before the event. They rented a car, took in the sights, and they stayed at the Carmelite Father's house in Northeast D.C. The next day, they attended a breakfast held by Republican Senator Charles S. Percy, where they rubbed shoulders with important people, and then they attended the parade. That night, they stayed at the Mayflower Hotel, the site of one of the 6 ballrooms to be used for the ball. Senator Percy told reporters later that he was delighted to see them take part in the democratic system. The next morning, they went to the swearing-in ceremonies, but had to stand a half a block away, but they didn't care. When the ball began, Mickey danced and strained his neck just like everyone else to see the new president when he arrived. Mickey would say, "It felt great. I got the feeling people were seeing the real Stones, not like they were seeing someone behind bars or something. It was really nice. It felt good to be black and be there." Mickey was lucky to even make it to D.C., because on the previous Friday, while he was out being fitted for his tux, the gang intelligence unit was breaking in the front door of the Southside Settlement House looking for Mickey. Mickey believed the police staged the raid because they just graduated a fresh class of officers and they wanted to show us who's boss. Mickey did not hide his disdain for the gang intelligence unit. In an interview in The Atlantic, he said, "It shouldn't be called the gang intelligence unit. It should be called the gang stupid unit because they're so stupid. If they really wanted to get us, they would wait until we committed crimes and then arrest us. Instead, they're trying to stop us from doing anything. Anytime people do things for us, the GIU tries to publicize it so that the donors get bad publicity. It doesn't want the Rangers and Disciples to have a peace treaty because it threatens the security of their jobs. I feel that the GIU, black men, use the Rangers and the rivalry between us and the D's to make their work more important to the system." Mickey believed that members of the GIU had extra police powers. According to him, they can go into any Cook County jail whenever they want. They have easy access to the press whenever they want to publicize stories about the Rangers. They have the help of the power structure in Chicago, and they can even influence judges. Suppose one of the younger cats goes out and does something and is put in the Cook County jail. They will be offered a chance to get out if they swear that they were told to do something by one of the older Rangers, by one of the main. He said, "The police have realized that they can't break up the Stones by now. They might have done it 4 or 5 years ago, but not now. All they can do is arrest the main. But the Stones will go on. In order to break us up, they will have to arrest everyone from the main down to the peewees. If the police pick up a Stone, we take the number of the car, call a lawyer, and follow the car to the station. We wait in the halls until a lawyer comes. Then we try to figure out what the bond is. If it's not too high, we try to raise it. But most of the bonds are set too high. He attributed the high bonds to intervention by members of the GIU and the influence they seem to have over judges. The Atlantic went on to say, Mickey Cogwell is recognized as the Ranger leader with the most business ability. For this reason, Ranger President Jeff Fort put him in charge of the West Side business operations of the Blackstone Nation. Cogwell is intelligent, and his directness suggests honesty and candor. He wears a black derby and a blue turtleneck sweater and talks very fast. He has been arrested more than 60 times, and he has considerable experience with the gang intelligence unit. Mickey and the Stones had control over president of the HRE International, and Mickey Cogwell became an organizer for Local 301 of the Culinary Workers Union. On November 27, 1975, federal agents rounded up the top leaders of the Black Keystone Rangers on charges of operating a lucrative stolen gun racket. 26 members, including Mickey, were arrested. Police Commander Thomas Hughes of the Gang Crimes Unit said, if someone doesn't put a stop to Cogwell, he's going to be the Al Capone of the black community. Mickey and the rest were accused of virtually controlling the illegal gun traffic on the South Side. They dealt in guns of all kinds, machine guns, sawed-off shotguns, as well as handguns and rifles. Authorities said many of the guns were stolen from gun shops, interstate shipments, and still others were taken from rival gangs. Police in the crime unit said that Mickey has always been one of the brighter members in the gang and was probably the real leader even before Jeff Fort went to prison. During his trial, in April of '76, while paid informant Maurice Childress was testifying, 17 men filed into the courtroom. 4 of them wore red turbans. One of them was Jeff Fort. The witness turned his face and refused to talk. Later, the judge dismissed 5 of the jurors after they said the incident prejudiced them. The next day, he declared a mistrial. The charges would eventually be dropped after a federal agent admitted to inconsistencies in his testimony. Mickey, by now, was possibly the biggest black gangster in Chicago. He was making money in the Robert Taylor home selling drugs. He took over the numbers operations for the outfit in Keystone-controlled areas, and he was a union organizer. When Jeff Fort decided that the Black Keystone Rangers would convert to Islam and change the name of the gang to the El Rukin, Mickey chose not to go along with his old friend. Some say Jeff Fort declared Mickey an enemy, but Jeff would deny it. In his eyes, to be an El Rukin was an honor, and it was not something that he pushed onto his subordinates. Mickey had begun to travel everywhere with 2 bodyguards, but Mickey was all alone on February 25, 1977. At 3:45 a.m., Mickey was dropped off a few blocks from his home at 7816 South Sealy Avenue. As he got near his home, a man ran up from behind. Mickey saw him and began to run, and then shots rang out. Mickey was hit once in the back and fell into the front yard of his home. Then a man wearing a dark ski jacket and a red pullover hat stood over Mickey and put 2 more into his back before running off. Mickey would be pronounced dead on the scene. Jeff Fort was the main suspect, but he and most of the important Stones had an alibi. The case has never been solved. The Cobra Stones blamed Fort for the murder and split from Fort and the El Rukin. And in 1982, the Cobras officially dropped out of the Black Keystone Nation and changed their name to the Mickey Cobras, or the Mickey's Cobras, in honor of their fallen chief. Even though they were no longer Stones, they still joined the People's Nation that had been started by Fort. Every summer, until the Robert Taylor homes were torn down, the Mickey Cobras donned red and black t-shirts reading "Long Live Mickey Cogwell" and threw a party to celebrate the life of their slain leader. And that, my friends,